Right. Hey, so I'm Dr. Ashley Hokut, doctor of physical therapy, specialist in prenatal and postpartum care for mamas. And I have a lovely mama with me, Stephanie. She is a transition and transformation coach and mom of two. And she's here to really share like her story about her pelvic health and what she actually went through. Postpartum with her births, both with her first and with her second, because she did experience prolapse. And so she's going to share her story and her physical therapy experience as well. So, Stephanie, if you want to just share a little bit more about, who you are, what you do, and also your postpartum experience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Ashley. I truly, truly wish that I had resources like yours when I was pregnant and postpartum, because as we will get into with the vaginal prolapse that I had after my first pregnancy and birth, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know to expect it, and I didn't know what to do about it. So I just have so much respect for your profession and the ways that you support women. And it feels like a real gift for me to be able to be here and talk about this for anyone who may be in that position now or in the future. So you kind of know some of the signs to look out for. So thank you for having me. And yeah, like Ashley said, I am a transition and transformation coach, a mom of two. As a transition and transformation coach, what I do is guide women when they are sort of on that bridge between two seasons or chapters of their life. So you kind of look back from where you came from and you realize you're not that woman or that version of yourself anymore. And you can look ahead to the other side of the bridge where you have yet to go, and you can see what's on the other side maybe, but you're not quite sure how to get there. And so I act as a guide and a support to help women navigate through seasons of change in their lives, whether that's starting a business, becoming a mom, moving to a new city, just something emotional, internal within you. And there are so many transitions that we have in life. I just think it's so critical to have support when we recognize and know that we don't have to do it all on our own. And I really like to help women find and own their inner wisdom and the power that lies within, because so often we do seek validation externally and look outside of ourselves for the answers when you really know inside when something's off or when you have a strong desire for something. And I think that actually is a good segue for this conversation, because with vaginal prolapse or any type of prolapse, pelvic prolapse, what is there, Ashley? Pelvic, rectal, and vaginal, is that the three types?
So there's bladder, which is a cystocele. Then when you say vaginal, you may be referring to uterine, like uterus prolapse, right? And then there's actually rectal prolapse and then a rectocele, which are two different types. There's a few other types, but there's actually more than three or more than four. Yeah. Because the intestine could actually move down.
It's something most of us don't even know exists at all, I think, going into the birthing process. But what segue there for me is thinking like I knew something was off in my body after having my first son. So I think the best way to I'll do a really quick brief description of what I felt to tell you something was off. And then I'm going to maybe rewind and talk about how I prepared for postpartum or didn't prepare, how my birth actually went, and then what ensued. Does that sound like
and even how did you prepare for birth a certain way, and was this included as your education? But that all sounds great. And I'm curious because you're going to talk about your symptoms. When was it postpartum that you started to notice symptoms or something was different?
I feel like I had the instinct within days of having Bruce, my first son, who's now 3. And I was like, I'll go into this more, but during my birthing process, I was crowning for about 45 minutes to an hour. So that's a long time, right? To have that pressure on your pelvic floor and to have the head right there. And it's like one more push. And it was never one more push. And my biggest fear was an episiotomy. I was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no, we can't do an episiotomy. I don't want more blood and cutting. Like that was my fear. I didn't know that my pelvic floor, that this like hammock that holds all these ligaments, tissues, muscles, whatever else is there, that was at risk. I had no idea. So there was a lot of swelling because of the crowning. So, I mean, a lot of swelling. And I was actually too terrified to look, like to take a mirror. You know, they tell you when you leave the hospital, okay, maybe look at it now. This is
Wait,
how
did they tell you that? Because I don't remember them telling me
they
that,
did.
but I did
And
it
I was,
myself.
yes, no, they told me that they were like, you know, because I was very nervous. I was like, are you sure everything looks okay? Even at the hospital,
Yeah.
this just feels like really crazy. Like I remember walking to the bathroom after I had Bruce, eventually when I could walk, because I did have an epidural. And I thought there was thread hanging down my leg. I was like, nurse, is there is there thread hanging between my legs? Because that's how swollen my vulva
Yeah.
is.
I
And I
know.
could
I
really,
remember feeling like, is this what it feels like to have balls? Like
yep,
that's, I just felt,
yep, yeah,
yeah,
totally,
I
totally. And
know it.
she's like, no, honey, that's your vulva. Just, it's a little swollen. I was
A
like,
little.
okay, that must be. And so then they're like, yeah, take a look in the mirror and then you'll know how you're healing. And I was like, no, thank you. I'm not a blood person. I can deal with poop and vomit. I used to be a teacher, but blood I can't do. And so I didn't look at myself ever. And but I felt it, and I knew something was off. And I would talk to my midwives. I think we had some phone calls after check-in. You know, you have your 6-week checkup.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's it. I don't even think there was a 2-week or anything, which shocked
Mm-hmm.
me so much when I found that out. I was like, no one's gonna check on my body, and like, I don't know what this is supposed to look like, right?
It's crazy. You have like 10 to 15 prenatals, and then you have a baby, and they're like, come back in 6 weeks
Yeah.
unless there's a problem, but nobody knows what's a problem.
What's the problem, right? There's such a lack of education about it. And not in the sense of like, right, like I said, you educate. There is education out there, but as a part of our, I don't even know what to call it. Like
It's
it's
like
a
not
process.
traditional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not there. So I did feel something in the early days, and I do remember calling, and I had a midwife friend talk to her. She didn't mention to me either, like, oh, it could be this. And so I went in for my 6-week appointment, and the midwives, the practice I saw, they don't even do an internal exam or look at you if you don't ask. So if they're like, how are you feeling? How did this go? Right. And I was like, I don't know. It feels really heavy. I feel like something's off. I feel like something's falling out. Right. So those are my initial symptoms, this heaviness,
Mm-hmm.
dullness, and feeling as though maybe not a full protrusion. Like I didn't really know if something, didn't feel like something was totally coming out. But again, I was so scared to even look. And my
Mm-hmm.
husband was like, do you want me to look? And I was like, no, like I was just too, like, I felt like I was a gutted animal, kind of, you know. I
Yeah.
was like, I don't want anyone to look like I don't
Yeah.
want it.
Did it feel like a tampon that's like kind of near the surface? You know,
Yeah,
like
it
just
was
something there
more
that is,
encompassing than that, but yes,
oh, more, okay. Big,
it was
more
full. I
full,
mean, it
more
really was.
full.
Yes. And I
All
will
right.
say, like, even sitting up in my bed was brutal. Like those early days, my husband would, the baby would cry. He'd be in a bassinet in our room, and my husband would get out of bed, get the baby, change his diaper, and whatever, you know, yeah, change his diaper. And in that time, I was just like trying to like lift my
Yeah.
everything up, because I felt like everything, and I think I was really swollen for a long time.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the prolapse, like my
Yeah.
tissues were big.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like I had to like peel myself off of the bed even. And like, so I wasn't sitting on part of my genitalia. I mean, that's what it
Mm-hmm.
looks like.
Yeah.
And just moving really gingerly. And yeah, so for my 6-week appointment, I went in and said, like, this is what I'm feeling, and can you please do a check? Which I think is already hard enough. I mean, I think you're pretty vulnerable when you have a child, and sort of a lot of that modesty goes out the window, right? You're just, everything's out in the open, maybe
Yeah.
poop's flying around, blood, like all the things.
Yeah.
But I don't know, something about being there 6 weeks later, it was hard for me to say, like, can you please look? Because I felt some sense of shame around what I felt in my body, you know?
Yeah.
Because I hadn't heard about it. I don't know. I
Yeah.
just felt like something's wrong, something's off
Yeah.
with me. And this feeling of fear of looking at it myself, I think
Yeah.
almost like I had this sort of disgust or repulsion wrapped up in it.
Mhm.
So I was like, even though these are midwives, right, who look at vaginas and vulvas and butt, rectum, like all the thing and
Mhm.
anus, I still just felt like I don't want them to have to look at my
Yeah.
ruined, that's how it felt.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, sure, we'll look if you feel like something's wrong. And I was like, I'd feel better if you did, like, tell me, And she looked and she didn't diagnose anything. But she's like, if you feel like something's off, here's a PT. She gave me the number. And new motherhood, I didn't call for several months. I just was like, I had to go to work. I wanted to come home and see my baby. I was trying to just adjust to this new life of having a little one. And after about 6 months is when I sought out physical therapy, because I was like, I couldn't stand for long without feeling fatigued, like fatigue in my pelvic floor. Walking was painful. I couldn't do any exercises. And so I just was like, yeah, enough is enough. I simply can't do this anymore. I'm an active person. I like hiking, couldn't go hiking, like everything I just felt this massive strain and exhaustion when I was on my feet at all. So I'm going to pause there and just see if you have a way you want to guide me or anything you want to ask before I continue.
Yeah, I feel like so it's almost like this is what I'm hearing, that you went to your midwives and it was almost like, yeah, here's physical therapy, but nothing like this will really benefit you, kind of like not pushing you, but really saying like, this is the way to go. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
do
And
if
keep
you
waiting.
want to have this extra snack in your lunch, fine, but like not
Yeah.
like you need this because you're out for a long time, you need extra energy and protein, or like there's just like this little like nonchalant.
Yep, completely. It was totally like, and I loved my midwives, like I really did. And as far as prenatal care and the birthing process, I felt very supported. And yet, right, we can even have this like really compassionate type of care in certain areas. But I really, as you said, postpartum care and awareness, I think is just so lacking, even in fields where they take care of women, right, in this way.
Did you ask any of your friends or were you like the first out of your friends to have?
I've still, none of my friends locally have had prolapse. And since I've opened up and talked about it on my social media account and within my business, I have made some connections with women who have, but I find it somewhat rare to come across, but there have been a handful of women who have been like, oh yeah, I dealt with that as well.
That's so crazy, because research shows that somewhere between 1/2 and 3 out, like 1 out of 2 or 3 out of 4, like depending on what you're reading, people have prolapse, and vaginal deliveries are like is a risk factor for it. And I wonder if people have it, but it's like a low grade and it's not something they notice is causing an issue for them. And so they don't know they have it, but they could be walking around with it. But when the research was done, I'm curious if it was just like, they just took a handful of people and was like, this many of you guys have it, but not everyone has symptoms.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I have no idea like how that data was collected. And I myself, so there are 4 grades, right, so there's one level, you could be a stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4, and stage 1 is the lowest or least noticeable, and stage 4 would be like something really protruding out. Yeah. And I am between a 1 and a 2, so I'm not on the really severe end, and it still was extremely uncomfortable for me. Really, I'm a very I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm hyper aware. Like, not a hypochondriac, but I definitely have very good body awareness. So that may be why it really bothered me.
That's what I'm thinking.
Sure, like I'm an open person, so I'm usually pretty like, hey, I noticed this about myself. Is this normal? I've been asking questions. I wonder if well, no, because I feel like it's almost over-reported. Yeah, I don't even, from what I've come into contact with, because I'm thinking, why would I have not met as many women that have had it. But
Yeah.
maybe the idea too, I think there's this whole air of like, oh, it's never the same, right? Oh, once you have a child, like that part of you is just never the same. And I feel like maybe some women just accept that, like,
Yeah.
oh, I had a baby, it's never the same. I
Yeah.
have to pee all the time. I might pee my pants. You know, things feel heavier down there. Like maybe women just don't even know that they don't have to feel that way forever.
Right. 100%. And like, yes, a postpartum, like anyone who's ever had a vaginal delivery, the vulva, the vagina and vulva are going to be different. Like the way they look is going to always look somewhat different.
Yeah.
Because you can only stretch so much before it will like go exactly back to the shape that it was. Like that is completely normal, but all the symptoms and like of, like you said, leaking urine or feeling that extra pressure or thinking it's painful, like sex is painful because I had a baby and I tore, like duh, no, like all the symptoms don't have to be your new normal. They don't.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know, would it be most helpful to talk about like my prenatal experience?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious. So you had your active labor was like an hour, right? And then
the pushing, no, like active, oh my gosh.
Phase.
When I went to the hospital to have my son, I had been in active labor with like painful contractions for, hold on, it was like 24 hours. It was about 24 hours of active contractions. I hadn't slept for like 36 hours because it was so painful. I couldn't sleep, and they were regular every 10 minutes from like 7 p.m. the night they started. And then we went to the hospital at like 7 p.m. the next day.
Okay.
And I was only barely 4 centimeters dilated. So that was awful. I was like,
what position did you birth in?
I did whatever the traditional, like laying on your back and holding, like my arms were under my knees. And to actually move Bruce out of the birthing canal, they did have to move my position. And I think I was like kind of a cat-cow pose, you know, like on all fours, or maybe on the side with my leg open. I don't even remember. I was just like, I was so tired. I mean, and then at that point I pushed for about 3 hours. Oh no, yeah, pushed for 3 hours, crowned for about 1 hour.
Pushed for 3. Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. And I'm small. I'm 5 feet tall. I'm petite. So it was, I think, like my frame is small too. I don't have good birthing hips necessarily, but yeah.
Speaking of birthing hips, so I'm curious, we can go ahead and tell me a little bit about what you did to prepare yourself for birth. Because you said you obviously had no idea about any postpartum stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you didn't learn any of that, obviously, during your pregnancy.
Yep.
You think, you know.
My preparation was nothing. That was my preparation.
Okay.
I like I said, like I did work out. I was active. I mean, through my pregnancy, I definitely got tired and I did less. We moved to a new house and it was more like getting the house set up and coming home after work and like falling onto the couch because I was a teacher and I was just like so weak. So I really didn't do anything, and I didn't know that I had to. I think I read something about perineal massage and I was like, that's weird. I don't want to do that. You know, like, yeah, before I had kids, especially, I was just like, no, I'm not, like, no, thank you. Like, why would I do that? I didn't know, you know, I just didn't know enough. And yeah, like I had done squats. I was like someone who lifted weights and things like that. But what I have learned through this process of developing Prolapse is there are very specific targeted workouts, you know, that support, like, it's not just Kegels, first of all, right? No, and never. It's not just a one type of Kegels, and it's not the more Kegels, the better. Like, oh, just do 1,000. Like that I learned in physical therapy. She's like, no. I want you to do like 10 of this, 5 of this, 3 times a week. Like, you don't want to tighten your pelvic floor too much. So going in, I didn't do anything. I ignored pretty much everything. I'm not a big planner in life. I'm a spontaneous person. I like to follow urges. I don't, if I over plan, I can get over anxious. So that's something I used to do a lot, was I'd over prepare for presentations, for anything in my life that was big. and it would make me really, really anxious. And so I did make this intentional decision when I was pregnant that I was like, I'm not going to do all of that. I didn't like really prepare in any way. Someone else made my baby registry. I was like, I don't want to deal with it. I was like,
did you read, you didn't read any books?
No, none, not
you
one.
You didn't take any classes?
Not one.
Not even in the hospital?
Didn't even tour the hospital.
You were like, go with the flow.
Yeah. I was scared of birth, but I was definitely, my outlook was, women have been doing this for centuries and centuries and centuries, in the backs of cars, in fields, wherever.
Yeah.
The baby only needs milk and a place to sleep. Like, we had clothes, we had a nursery, like I could make a room for him and everything. But I, as someone who was educated in early childhood and a Montessori, and I was like, I know enough, right? I'm nurturing, I know enough, I'll figure it out. But yeah, I was just like, it'll come to me. My midwives and the doctors in the hospital are there to guide me through this birth, where my body might not know what to do if that happens. Then there are people that are there to support me. And that was kind of just the way I took the pregnancy. And I don't have any regrets about that, except for pelvic floor health. Like, that is something, had I known, I easily would have and could have prepared myself for. As someone who was active and cared about my body to begin with, I would have done that, but I had no knowledge. And I don't even know that I would have found that was important in any books I would have read or anything anyway. Like, I don't know if you are aware. Like,
I mean, there are definitely more books and courses and things like that available now, but you have to kind of, I feel like you have to kind of seek them out or be in the circle of people who also have that awareness and knowledge of it, or else it's not necessarily going to just like be given to you. But I have a question, just because you said, like, if you do too much planning, you do develop a little, like, you would develop anxiety about that, like, whole like event and situation. So I completely understand why you wouldn't plan so much. And, I like to, like, for example, in my birth prep program, I like to teach people about possible symptoms that could pop up postpartum, like prolapse and different things. Not to scare them or make them anxious, but to make them let them be aware of things that could happen so that they can get better care faster. But I'm curious, like, if you would have known that ahead of time, do you think it would have made you anxious? I mean, it's hard to say, right? But like, sometimes we know we learn the things we need to learn at the right times, and we get these lessons and all these things, right? Like, because I find a lot of first-time moms, the ones that come to me, they're already like in the frame of mind where, like, they have a doula, they have all these like support systems, and they're like looking for as much information. Or it's the second-time moms that want a different experience because they learned from their first. So I'm just wondering, like, from your perspective, if you would have even known,
would I have done anything?
Like, like, would you have wanted to learn? Because now because you learned that you probably should have learned it, right? But as I'm the go with the flow person, what would have helped you know that this was important for you, other than going through the experience?
I think awareness for me, because I had awareness of tearing and episiotomies. I had awareness, and that was the thing I was hyper focused on and nervous about. I knew it existed, but aside from perineal massage, I think was the only thing I read that was like, this is a way to avoid tearing. Right? That like everything will stretch out better, and it'll be, and so that was the reason I would not allow I think I would have allowed an episiotomy if I knew what could happen to my pelvic floor, and that would be for life. I mean, that is the thing, right? When you have prolapse, you can correct the symptoms through physical therapy, and it can take care of many people and their symptoms forever, right? And as long as you remember to do your exercises and keep up with that, then you're good. If you don't remember to keep up with your exercises and you have a type of prolapse where you're gonna, that's maybe more severe, or even mine's not more severe, but I have not kept up with my exercises once the pandemic of 2020 hit.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to PT for like 7 months or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. And then I stopped going, and I have light symptoms again, or still they kind of like pop up here and there. But had I known that that was a possibility versus get an episiotomy and get some stitches where you were cut and then that heals and goes away, like I think I would have prepared had I known like really what is the reality, you know, if you put too much strain on a pelvic floor that's not been prepared for the birthing process. And so to me, it's just about awareness, like that your pelvic floor, like this is its job, this is what it does. And this goes before, I think, even prenatal health. Like this is just a part of the female body, right? This is like an important part of our bodies. Yeah. And I got fitted for a pessary. If someone watching doesn't know what that is, like it's a piece it almost looks like a diaphragm, you know, and you sort of can roll it up and pop it in, and it's
you fold it like a taco. Well, the one you're talking about, because there's different types. The one you're talking about, you fold it like a taco. You put it in, and it like expands open. Some of them are just a disc. Some of them have a flat piece in it to help.
Okay.
I don't know which kind you were fitted for, and there's some over the counter ones. There's also like different shapes for different degrees and different the different types of prolapse, whether it's uterine or cystocele, but I like to think of them as like a sports bra for your pelvic organs, you know?
Yeah. And I got fitted for one, the taco that you fold it like a taco, and it's like almost like bigger on the outside, like a rounder raised edge. And then, but to me, I mean, I tried different sizes, and it's almost like there was not a perfect or a good fit for me. I have one.
Uncomfortable? Was it painful?
Yeah, it felt like it was rubbing. It was uncomfortable. Hurt. Yeah.
And the thing is with postpartum and pessaries, and just pessaries in general, is like you want to make sure you have a good like supply of estrogen. And so sometimes they give people estrogen prior, or estrogen testosterone, like a blend, to prepare the tissues ahead of time, because postpartum your hormone levels are lower, your sex hormone levels compared to during pregnancy or prior to pregnancy. And so that affects like the plumpness and suppleness of your muscles, or your tissues, I should say, in your pelvis. And your levels stay lower up to 3 months after you've done your either 3 months postpartum or 3 months after you've stopped breastfeeding.
Okay.
And so that could affect how, if it feels like raw and rubbing and uncomfortable in there, you know?
Yeah. It's still sitting in my medicine cabinet or something.
Like on the shelf, like frame.
And I will say too, like I think anyone who follows you and is watching your content knows, like, physical therapy is not scary. Physical therapists are like the most wonderful, especially like, and I've heard this from people, like pelvic floor physical therapists are just like the best people in the world. And my physical therapist that I had, Katie, she was just, I loved her. She was so wonderful. She I mean, I don't know. They see you like this whole person, and we talked about everything. Like I even brought Bruce, my baby, once, because like I didn't have a situation like childcare for him that day or during that time. And she's like, just bring him into my office. That's fine. And we'll work around him. We'll make it work. Like, they really understand what you are going through and dealing with. And they want you to get better. Like they believe in your strength, and they know, like they really know what they're doing. And there's such subtleties in your body that like we can't feel or understand or know, and a physical therapist that is trained to work with your pelvic floor, they do. And they design exercises and the amount of repetitions and the specific type of exercise, not just a Kegel exercise, but different things for your glutes and your hamstrings. I mean, every little thing. And that will help build on your strength and flexibility and mobility and all of that, muscle tone. And I only wish I had started sooner. And I felt I did then for my second birth. So I have a 1-year-old. There's these guides, Expecting and Empowered. and they
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of pelvic floor strength. Now, I don't know if it would have been quite as helpful for me had I not been taught by a physical therapist how to do certain exercises, right?
Yeah.
Certain types of Kegels where she would like tell me like, yep, you're doing it right. That's correct. Right. And like the way they know this, anyone watching, is there's digital or manual therapy. So she'd just have like a gloved hand under a blanket inside of me, and she'd feel like what I was doing. And that's how she knew. It's not like someone's like necessarily staring up you and, you know, you're not fully exposed in that way. So I know that it can sound really scary, I think, right? This whole vaginal pelvic floor physical therapy, but it doesn't feel that way when you're in it. But that was helpful. I think I used that, still not as much as I should have, right? Because I was, I don't know, second pregnancy, I was really, really tired with the toddler on my hands all the time. But that birth was much easier. It was 12 hours total of active labor from first contraction to getting him out. By the time I got to the hospital, I was like 8.5 centimeters dilated, and I pushed for 20 to 30. I mean, it was like, no, I feel like I pushed like 5 times. It was very fast.
Yeah.
Easy. And my recovery was hours later. I was walking around and I was like, whoa. Then I really realized how fucked up, excuse me, but like how bad, I'm sorry, how bad I felt and how bad I had it the first time. Because the second time I was just like, what, this is it? This is fine, right? I was like, I'm sore, I'm a little tender, but like nothing like how my body felt the first time around. Nothing.
Yeah.
So it is
a similar experience. Well, not similar, but just similar, that like I could barely walk after the first. And the second one, I was like, I didn't feel like I could run a marathon, but I was like, I can walk to the bathroom.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not hurting and I'm not like crying. And I could,
Yep. And going home, and I was able to pick up my toddler and carry him around. I probably shouldn't have, but you know, I was like, okay, I'm fine. I can squat. I can do this. I can do that.
Did you do, for your first is like, no. Yeah. Did you do pelvic floor physical therapy before your second to prepare for birth?
No, I didn't go back to, it was still like, I was pretty scared. I will say, if it weren't for the pandemic, I probably would have, but I was just in the space of being really scared of putting myself at risk. Like I entered that pregnancy and went through that pregnancy. I had some symptoms through the pregnancy more because there is that weight again, right, on your pelvic floor, and your center of gravity is so different. But even that felt so different from before I started PT, when I felt the symptoms of my prolapse with my first. And so I did dig up some of the papers that my physical therapist had printed out for me with some of the exercises, and I had that expecting and empowered. So I am sure, like, I kind of chalked together my own, I won't call it a program, but I did offer myself more support that second time around because I knew what could happen. And I was scared that the second time it was going to become worse. You know, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to push another baby out. And then like, what if everything comes out? I was scared. So,
did you go to the pelvic floor therapist after your second?
I didn't. No, I mean, I didn't feel the effects. Like I just like once in a while now I feel some heaviness, and I'll do some of the targeted exercise that my PT gave to me the first time. And I know like there's this level, I have this intention to go back and just be like, how is my muscle tone? What should I do? How can I support myself? But I had postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum thyroiditis. After my second was born, my second had severe acid reflux, a milk protein allergy, and then we had a toddler on our hands. And so I was just so much less able to take care of myself, especially if it didn't feel desperate, right? And since my pelvic floor health felt worlds better than it did with my first son, I just kind of was like, I just survived until eventually I was like, I need to go to therapy. I need an antidepressant. And I need some other support for my mental and emotional health because this can't continue, right? And it's the sad fact that sometimes it feels like it's this or that, and that we wait until we are desperate before we get help, because that's how I felt with my pelvic floor. The first time I waited 6 months to seek out help. And then my postpartum depression and anxiety after my second, and the thyroiditis, I waited 4 or 5 months to get an endocrinologist for the thyroid problems. And then another 4 months to get therapy and antidepressants. And it's, that's like a message to impart for sure, is again, like knowing and trusting your body when you're in a place of transition, or when something feels off or uncomfortable or not right, to not sit with it longer than you have to. And knowing that there are so many wonderful, amazing people out there who are qualified and waiting to help you and wanting to help you and support you and help just hold space for you and guide you along in this next chapter of your life, whether it's for your pelvic floor, your mental health, whatever it is.
Yeah. Wow. It's like first one was major physical transformation for you. Second one, emotional and mental.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to yourself, during your first pregnancy, or any other mom? I know you've obviously given tons of advice right now, but like, what would you say, like the number 1 or 2 pieces of advice, like when you're pregnant, that you think is like super necessary, to start to like explore and like really learn about, to prepare you?
I definitely feel like there is such an emphasis on preparing for the baby. And things baby. And I urge women to think about themselves, because you're not going to be able to care for that baby and you'll be able to love that baby. Love isn't the right word, but you're not going to be able to care for the baby in the ways that you hope to if you're not being cared for. And I think there's too much of this narrative that, I'm lucky if I get a shower in a few days, and I'm lucky if I feed myself. And there's almost like this badge of honor when people say it. And it's like, ask for support. Like, think about what your body will have gone through, what it's gone through for 9 months, all of the changes, all of the energy that's gone into creating this human life, sustaining this human life, the birthing process. And like, your body was built for it, and so you can do it, but also it's some trauma to your body, right? It's like very, it's a lot that happens in that time that you're going through the birthing process. And so like remembering that, and then how you're healing and what's happening after, and that your whole life, if it's your first or your second child, like it's being turned upside down and inside out. And so I think like just really finding some quiet space to tune into yourself and what you need, want, desire in your life, and in your space after that baby is born. And not that your baby is not important, but if mom is taken care of and if mom is feeling good, then that's going to spill over to the baby too. But if all we focus on and prepare for is the baby, then that's a problem.
It's like we get pregnant and we feel like we're supposed to be like, we can't have any selfish, like it feels selfish to all of a sudden care for us. But it's not, because like you said, it's actually selfless. It's like you care for you, and that's going to spread to everybody around you, your baby, your partner, like everything.
Yes. Yeah. So that's my big advice. And I really do, like, not just because I'm here having this conversation with you, it is really what I say to other people who aren't in the, pelvic floor physical therapist, but that is the big thing. And that's, of course, that's what I dealt with. So I'm sure there are other things, but even if you end up having a cesarean, your pelvic floor is still going through a lot during and after having that baby. So figuring out some ways to support yourself there, I think is really huge.
Even because some people have a C-section, they're not all planned. So some have already pushed for a while. They did that, but they also did carry and support a baby for however long,
Yeah. And I think, like you said, a lot of moms and women come to you wanting all of the information, and they are collecting information from every source and every person about every part. And if that's what you need to do, and that's what feels good for you, helps you to feel prepared and at ease and in a peaceful state of mind to welcome your baby, then by all means do it. But the work that I do with women and what I believe in preparing to be a mom, the most important thing and the most important voice that you can listen to is your own, right? And so kind of like thinking about, okay, if it's really important for me to prepare for certain aspects of my pregnancy, my birthing process, and postpartum, what does my body feel? What do I feel? Like, what is that gut feeling of this is the thing, or I'm interested in this, and taking some pressure off of yourself to feel, if it's like a compulsion of, I feel like I have to know all these things, trying to release some of that pressure and trusting that, again, like your body, your mind, your soul, like you know what to do deep down, and you know when something is off, or you know when something is important and just right, and paying attention to that, because that's the most important tool that you're going to have when you're a parent, when you're a mother, right? And I think that will also help you prepare best for your pregnancy and your birthing process too.
100%. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. I feel like it's something that's so necessary to talk openly about. It really helps other people who are experiencing it at the moment as well, but it also helps other people who, if they're pregnant and they aren't experiencing it, at least they have that first stage of awareness. So if something pops up, they know that they can take care of it, and hearing your story should take care of it sooner, right? I don't know, because you took care of it at the time that was right for you and your body, and you know, it's really never too late.
No, correct.
But it's nice to have like a head start. So thank you. Just thank you for sharing everything and being open. How can everybody find you? Like, do you have a website? Are you on social?
Yeah.
Share the details.
Yes. I'm most active on Instagram, and that's Stephanie Traska, which I think you could probably see here. So there's a dot in between my name.
Yeah, and I'll put it up.
Yeah, and I respond to every DM. So if there's a woman who is just wants to talk about preparing for your pregnancy, going through your pregnancy, postpartum, and any part of it, I am an open book. Prior to being a transition and transformation coach, I was a mindset and business coach for moms, and prior to that, I was a teacher. And so I've always worked with parents, with mothers in a variety of ways. If you're a business owner, I have a membership community for entrepreneurial minded moms to network, mastermind, and collaborate. And I do one-on-one work with women, group programs. I have an upcoming program, a year-long one called Chrysalis, that is about going through transitions and transformations. And we kind of follow the seasons and moon cycle to guide us through the natural rhythms in the universe and of ourselves, as themes to work through going through changes in life, which might be a really great thing for someone who's just had a baby, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. And then littlescrapsofmagic.com is my website. So I would welcome anybody to check me out. And like I said, any type of conversation at all, just to connect.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ashley.
Yeah. Have a great day.
You too.